Hey, y'all. So we're going to give it time for people to come in. I'm so excited to be here. I actually have a lovely divine sister that is going to be live with us. So just give us a moment. Let me send out. There she goes. All right. Sis put in the request so I could accept it. Or there we go. Never mind. Oh man, I'm pressing accept. There we go. All right. You know, IG likes to be delayed just a little bit.
Of course. Always.
What it do? What it do? Hello. You look so beautiful.
What to do, homie? Hold on. Put these headphones on.
It's funny because I've been having this filter for such a long time and I've been wanting to use it. And I don't know why I haven't used it yet, but I'm using it now.
I like that what you have going on there.
Pew, pew. To get all the fuck shit away from me. Pew, 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 pew. Human? No.
Because we both not
Just
human.
joking. So yeah, I'm actually excited because we were talking earlier on the phone and we were talking about the live that I did earlier and all this like sacred rage and sacred sexuality and like how when I'm conversing with you, the words just seem to make a lot more sense than when I was just like channeling through it, right? And essentially sometimes just needing to take a pause to digest all the information that we're channeling.
Right.
And you and I definitely have some things coming up here when it comes down to like the whole sacred sexuality and for tantra and its deeper meaning to the core. And so I definitely know that you have your fair share of experience when it comes down to sacred rage, transmutation, sacred sexuality. How do you use sacred sexuality to transmute some sacred rage? So I kind of just wanted us to like touch bases on that. And greetings to everyone coming in.
And there's
Yeah.
so many like different forms that you can do to release and to express, which is like so fascinating because we're not taught this sacredness of the sacred rage, the tantra, the sacred sexuality, very important because our sexual energy is everything. It's how you create, how you express. It's all through that creation and being in integrity and being true with that within yourself and your individual self. Hello.
Absolutely. So I know for me, like one of the big forms of transmutation that helps me is like just breathing techniques and different forms of like Kundalini yoga. Specifically, which Kundalini yoga and Tantra are similar, right? They're different forms of yoga, but they can exist with one another.
Of
And so
course.
that's essentially how I like to connect with it. Greetings. Cause woo, sister was spicy earlier, spicy, and I was saying, having to collect this data, collect this information, this sacred rage, and purify it by way of digesting and understanding the information, right? To then be able to overstand the information and move accordingly, right?
Right.
But it took for me to first kind of gather my breath, right? It took for me to um, tap into emotional intelligence so that I can learn to reconnect with my disciplines, right? So that way I'm not just causing havoc or chaos or just, so much instability of emotions and projected out to society, right? Essentially, like I was talking about, like, you want me to say it with my chest? If I really say it with my chest, I'll fucking go out here and I will curse for generations. And it was in that same understanding that I was able to digest what the words that I was saying and comprehend how much of a healer I am also. And I didn't get to express that live before because I was just expressing how much of the sacred rage was coming up and how much I had to tap into my emotional intelligence to be disciplined enough to not start cursing, right?
Right,
Like
like
literally
to not
curse.
react versus like you're expressing and you're releasing, but you're keeping that intention of like, is this a reaction or is this a projection? So it's the fact that you
Mhm.
have that awareness, which is super important, especially when it comes to sacred rage and like feeling this anger and feeling this frustration. Yeah, let it out. But there's many forms and many different ways that you can go about it, and not, like you said, not losing control.
Mhm. And then essentially even tapping into the healer within too, like recognizing how that sacred rage can actually show you how much of a healer you are. But how do you get there? How do you
Right.
turn, how do you connect healing with destruction or with anger? How do you connect love with anger? How do the two make sense with each other? And through for me, it was by way of sacred sexuality. It was by how do I allow myself to make love to my anger without me like resenting or without it turning into resentment because I don't want to repress it. If I repress it, I'm going to create resentment,
Right.
which is not love. That is not healing. That's more it just it's more sexual frustration because the energy is built up
Right.
and it's pent up and it's not moving the way that your kunda wants to be moved, right? The way your life force energy wants to move, right?
100%.
So like, talk to us, sis, because I know that you know what the freak I be going through. So, like, what are some tips or I guess to be able to identify first before we go into like some techniques as to what people can do to transform this energy? How do you identify what is anger? And what is like, yeah, how do or not just anger but emotions, like how do you identify your emotions to be able to transform it?
Right. Um, so let's touch base on anger. So how I identify anger is when, you feel tight in your body, like in your physical body. You feel frustrated, and whether it's like, a situation you have with someone or a situation came up and you have this sensation of tenseness, right? So it's in your body. And 100%, rather asking if this is mine or what's yours. Because I know as an empath, I can take on, it perceives that I'm taking on other people's emotions, whereas I have to look within myself and be like, this is my anger, let me sit with it. Versus, you know, the old me, the old version of me is when I do feel anger, I would chaos. I would scream, I would throw things. So that was more on the reactionary. I would leave my house. I'd be like, I don't give a fuck about this shit. Fuck out. I would curse. Like I would be straight up. But that was
Well,
the old.
cursing and cussing are two different things. I was literally talking about cursing, but anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the old version of me was very reactionary, and as a fire sign, that I just burn shit. I don't give a flying F about like who affected or anything like that. So it's getting to know these parts about ourselves and like literally looking within and okay, do I have the choice to react, or do I have the choice to sit with it and release it in a healthier way, whether it's screaming in a pillow, going to the gym, or whichever outlet is, your preference of outlet.
So with that tension, right? Because anger definitely, and I tell you, I had to breathe through my emotions. I literally I like to clean. I have to clean when I start feeling like certain emotions because, ooh, like, yeah, getting the energy to move and like exercise is definitely a good one. Breathing through it, getting into different kriyas and essentially like going within and they mentioned Earth Angel mentioned asking if this is yours, if asking yourself, is this mine or someone else's? I'm glad that you put that up because
Mm-hmm.
when I woke up essentially in the morning, the very first thing I felt like I took a deep breath and I have been flowing through this energy all weekend. Sis, we were
I
talking
know,
like
I
all
know.
weekend. I was like, I didn't even check the astrology out there because I didn't want to like be influenced by certain astrological placements by looking into it or whatever. I just was like, let me flow and see where it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just being in the moment. And I was intuitively picking up. I was like, she's like, you think this is Mars and Leo? I'm like, no, like yes and no, right? I was like, there got to be a square, something going up. Sure enough, since Saturday, there was a square. I just found out today, right? But there was a square happening in the skies, right? With Mars and Jupiter. And so very interesting. And the moon was also very active. Now my moon is in Sagittarius. So kind of learning the astrology of it could also help you connect with different forms of techniques that may be beneficial for your transmutations in Tantra. But we're not going to go too much into that. That's just something that I know works as a tool for me when
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to how I utilize astrology and Tantra in wholeness together, right? How they make sex to each other, how they make love to each other, different forms of information, right? But I woke up and I just felt so much rage. And I did have to ask myself, like, is this collective shit that I'm fucking feeling? And essentially, it's always both. I'm going to tell you the answer is always both because if you are feeling it, like I was like, I'm such a sensitive ass being, and I can blame it on being empathic. I can blame it on being sensitive. I can blame it on whatever I want to blame it on the collective. But essentially, there is a vibrational resonance to the data that's in the air in which as an empath I am one with,
Right.
right? I am essentially one and the same with that collective energy. I am not separate of, which is why, yes, I do feel it, right? But how much of it may be mine? It's not all of it, right? And that's where it's okay. Taking responsibility of your own emotions is
Mm-hmm.
important, right? And that comes with the
Emotional
emotional intelligence. That
intelligence.
comes with asking the questions. But before
Facts.
even asking the questions, how do you connect with your body, right? Yeah, you can ask these questions, but maybe somebody doesn't know how to connect with like, how do they understand what their body is saying?
And
They just might wake up and feel like they're having a fucked up day.
and that used to be me for a long fucking time because I didn't know how to feel it in my fucking body. Like when I was talking about to you about this earlier, I didn't know how to express my anger because I suppressed that shit. So the first time me feeling my anger, which was like not that long ago, maybe like a couple months ago, I was, feeling into the moment, and there was an exercise that I did, and like I thought that was like the first time in my whole existence of life of 28 years of here in this lifetime that I felt true anger and actually released it, and to the point that I was just like screaming and banging on the fucking floor that my throat legit opened up. And just doing with that exercise, just actually allowing myself permission to just go off, like I love doing it now because it feels so fucking good. So
And
it's
that's the sacred rage.
and taking responsibility to move that energy and not suppressing it. For the longest time I had this, narrative conditioning. Oh, you're too loud. No, you shouldn't be expressing your emotions like this. And it's like, no, I'm gonna fucking express because
Oh yeah.
we have
Oh
to.
yeah.
That's without expression there's this ease. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That was talking about the kriya. Like there's a yoga kriya that it allows for you to burn and purify that rage, but in a sacred way that allows for you to connect with the warrior within you and your spiritual council, the warriors of your council. And it's so powerful, and I can't wait for us to like do it together in ceremony. And just, I know that that's something that when I learned it in Kundalini yoga, it just, the whole breathing technique and slamming onto the ground and really getting all that rage, all that anger, all that
Suppressed.
tension that's in the body. Yes, the suppression, the resentment, the neglection,
All of it.
the upsetness and everything, just banking it and transforming it consciously through the breath and through action, essentially showing yourself how to navigate your own energy in a way that you're making love to yourself, and it is sexual and it is sensual, and it's transformative and it's powerful and it's beautiful, and it allows for you to be expressive, without having to feel like, no, I'm not allowed to be angry. So with me, like today, I was like, no, fuck that shit. I'm allowed to be angry. Just because I have emotional intelligence and know how to emotionally regulate myself does not mean I'm not allowed to get upset. First of all, anger and upset are two different things. I was a lot. I was upset. I was angry. I was ferocious. There was just so many things coming up. And I said, I'm going to allow myself to feel this. I need to feel this so that I can understand its wisdom even deeper than what I think I understand it now, right? It's something here that, yes, this is a collective energy that's coming up to the surface, but what do these emotions have to teach me, right? And it was allowing myself to like see how much love is actually hidden behind these emotions, right? And also like how to reconnect with that, and how like that was when I went, like how I was saying, like, damn, I didn't mention about the healer part, because as destructive as these energies can be, it essentially teaches you how to become a healer, your own healer, and the healer of others as well, being able to share this wisdom, right? So I was just like, breathing, and it wasn't the time or the place. Like what I wanted to express, the people that I wanted to express it to were not in front of me, and essentially in the ways that I wanted that to express it, I knew it wasn't gonna be beneficial if I reacted in a way that was just like erratic, right? And so I just started chanting, and it was like Sa, Sekem, Saul, and just Sa, Sekem, Saul.
And I'm already feeling it.
Sa, Sekem, Saul. And I just felt so much divine sacred mother energy flowing through me, and knowing that my lust for revenge, in a way, there was a lust there, And I was like, well, there's lust, there's revenge, there's love in there too. And where's the healer in this? And it wasn't until getting in connection with that chance was I able to still feel the emotions of anger and frustration, but get so much deeper wisdom behind it. Because now I'm not repressing or suppressing that anger, but I allowed love to get involved with that anger, and we was making love to each other through the chants,
Mm-hmm.
through my voice, through my breath. I was feeling that energy going up, and it was so angry, but it was being heard and it was being understood. It was being felt. And so the tension started to, like, it would come up and it'll release, and it'll come up and it'll release. And it felt like I guess that's the, like,
Like
saxophone or something like
yeah,
that.
like
Yeah, like,
contract, no, contractions
yeah,
of like the
contracting,
energy of
yeah.
just
And
expanding, like it's expanding and then going within, expanding and then going
correct.
within. Yeah.
And it was playing such a beautiful melody, and just learning that within, like, this is things, and I'm saying learning that or relearning it, because essentially, like, this is stuff that I knew already, but not to the level that today it expressed itself with me, right? And that was through the breath, that was through love, that was through rage and sexual energy, because it was orgasmic. I'm telling you, I started cleaning. I had to pause quite a few times of feeling the energies, the vibrations. Like, I was so happy that I was allowing myself to be angry. Like, I didn't even know I can be happy being angry.
Yeah,
Why do we have to be one or the other when they coexist with each other?
right. Especially like there is also can be shame in feeling anger because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, again, like I mentioned before, the conditioning is such a deep, deep conditioning of not feeling angry, or when you feel angry and you express that, the other person or whatever it is can take it as, or they perceive it as, oh, no, like I don't want to like deal with this and just face the other way. Whereas that's emotional intelligence. Like we gotta, there needs to be a point that we can see that and just observe and hold space for that anger to be transmuted, and you're able to have a safe container to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I because what I witnessed in a few of my old friendships, there would be times that I was angry. Either the person was gonna say something, they didn't follow through what they say, and then I speak up about it, and then they're like, um, yeah, um, they just say something that's like not taking accountability for their actions and completely dismiss the situation. So it's like I even get even more frustrated and angry because it's like you're the words of emotional intelligence, so it's so important and vital to learn emotional intelligence, like just not within yourself, but to be able to communicate and have these hard conversations. It's part of the
Would you
human
say
experience.
somebody, I'm sorry,
You're good.
would you say that somebody would be able to practice Tantra without emotional intelligence?
Well, the thing is, Tantra, there's just so many forms, right? So it really depends what form that you, of the form of Tantra. But for the sake of this conversation of emotional intelligence and anger and Tantra, you, I would suggest to know, or at least get to know, get to that point of that you're curious about learning about it, and then, making your way about it. But in other forms of Tantra, you don't, I mean, it goes hand in hand. Again, it depends. Because Tantra is like, you can chant, meditate. You don't necessarily have to know emotional intelligence. But I know when it comes to sacred sexuality, you do need to know emotional intelligence because it's so deep, super, super deep. So, yeah.
Yeah. I want to go a little bit into the sacred sexuality. I just want to read the comments also because they're saying some juicy stuff and I don't want anyone to feel
Yes.
ignored. If y'all have any questions, also feel free to ask questions. My finger is a little bit uh, slippery when wet. Okay. Also knowing that it is okay to feeling all right. Also knowing that it is okay to quote unquote feeling, to embody the emotions and move through it. Often we can forget to feel and push them down, which we can leave to stagnant energy, which becomes dense. Absolutely. Within the astral body. Absolutely. And that's why I say, taking the accountability. I love that you use that word, right? They weren't taking accountability when we're asking ourselves, is this even minds? Is this the collectives? Taking accountability that there's a frequency resonance with one another. And so a part of it is yours too, darling. So how are you dealing with self, right? And so that's the only way you're really going to release that stagnant energy from being so dense is by taking ownership of your shit. It's yours. It's yours. Calling back your power. Calling back your power is calling back your shit too. Calling back your power is calling back your dense energies, your light energies. It's all yours.
That was
All
old
yours.
me. I was like, I don't
You
want to take
can shift
ownership because
it.
fuck that. But I'm like, I have to. I
I
have to. And
felt that in
also,
my body. I said, wait, my hips don't lie. This shit is lying right now, bitch. You lying. You
uh,
lying. Hold on.
Sean,
This shit hurt right here. And feeling the hurt and feeling why it's stiff and why it's stuck. And I was like, yo, like, that's why I was vulgar and I was talking about eating pussy and dick and all of this shit because, like, literally, I have to compare myself to a pussy and to a dick to see how the fuck I was acting. Like, my body. Why is it feeling so tense? Why is it that I have to rush through my words? What is the anxiety? What is the rush? What is the panic? What is the fear? What is all of this? So taking a moment to breathe, right? I'm gonna do that.
and there was a comment here, before Earth Angel is by Sean underscore Atima. So she says, my actions after being angry used to be having me meet people in the dark alley, literally, but I'm so grateful for my growth. And I feel you, that used to be me, but it was in high school, and I wanted to beat this girl up because she said something on Twitter. It was something so stupid and petty, but I was like, nah, you're gonna catch these hands. So I feel you. We've grown a lot. So it's all about the awareness. And it's beautiful, this awareness when we get it. Because it's just having this awareness and then it's taking the action, like baby steps towards making a change. Sustainable change.
Mm-hmm. 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 I used to be Melissa Love. By the way, I'm going to share my stories about that dream if that's okay, because that was powerful and so beautiful. And shout out to you. That's definitely shout out to you. And essentially, she was talking about dream work. I'm not going to go too much into that, but that's, Tantra's life and it's so multidimensional, multifaceted that it can impact in the dream realm as well. So just to put that out there. So, which is why when you say, about the emotional intelligence, that's even multi-layered right there too, because it can be unconscious emotional intelligence through your spirit in the dream realm, or something that allows for you to be conscious, right? Or you can learn the emotional intelligence throughout the process of practicing Tantra. in a sense. So I love that that was your answer. So Melissa Love says, I used to disillusion myself that anger was the more powerful. Oh, hold on. There's a scroll up there. That anger was the more powerful emotion as opposed to acknowledging physical/emotional hurt, sadness, disappointment. I now know better and learned amazing lessons.
I feel that one very fucking hard because Angelic can vouch for me. I was deep in the illusions. I was like, bitch, I can't see shit. I'm here like, oh, this is nice. But it's like, nah,
Even
it's
even practicing, like my whole practice in life has shifted, right? Which is great. I love transformation. And that's why I like to share this. Like anytime I'm sharing about plant medicine is because it changed my life for real. Like changed my life. If I'm sharing about breath work, it's because it changed my life. If I'm sharing whatever medicine is coming up is because it has literally changed my life. Yo, when I was practicing, like first getting into the craft and everything like that, like when I started getting into the whole like love and light phase of my life, oh my gosh, how frustrating was it to like, do you understand? First of all, I've always been like, I will be like, I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I am a self-defender. Every fight I got into, I would like blank out and I would really, really hurt the person, but not because I was defending myself, right? Essentially, there was so much pent up inside of me that I would tolerate that when I let go, I exploded. It was explosive. It was dangerous. And, that's why I didn't like fighting. I'm like, I don't want to fight you. Like, I don't want to fight you, but if you put your hands on me, I'm gonna defend myself. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
And so that's, growing up, I was in that way. I also didn't like bullies. And so I would stand up to like the bullies if they bullied somebody else. Like I was like, yo, in my mind, I'm like, you win some, you lose some, do it with your chest. If you got heart, you can't go wrong, right? If you got heart, you can't go wrong.
Exactly.
And you could get beat up, but you can't go wrong,
And
right?
it's that Sagittarius trait of for justice, Since like,
Yes, yes.
we're all about justice and, like fighting for others who are like, nah, like you don't fucking deserve this. So
Mhm,
it's like,
mhm.
nah, I gotta fucking stand up for you, like,
But
because
like,
you know
I'm sorry, there was still like disillusions in some of that too, and
of
like not
course,
not really taking
overextending or
ownership.
people pleasing or like, giving, giving, giving. Whereas like, where's the reciprocation where we were talking about that another time? Like needs to be reciprocation when it comes to that situation. But
Mm-hmm.
that's something else.
Yeah, I would get so like frustrated, and I would do candle magic, or I would do like certain different practices and things like, oh, you think you a runner? Oh, let me show you how a hot foot look like. And certain things, and essentially, having to learn the lessons through that. Like, so when I was all love and light and like, I was like, oh, hold on, this thing is slow. Like, being angry works so fast, you know? Being vengeful got me instant results and stuff like that, like things moving at a different pace that essentially when things was healing, I got frustrated because I felt like it was taking longer. Why are my manifestations taking longer? And no, it was my connection wasn't in the right spaces. So that was hindering the speed of the healing. It was hindering the speed of the manifestations. And then when I got to love and light, because then I learned that lesson, right, of like the connection to get into like the love aspect of the light, because light doesn't necessarily just, that's a whole different topic, but light and darkness, right? But getting into the like love and light aspect of things, then I went too much into that space and I created a disillusionment as well with anger and resentment. That's where you're talking about like shame, right? Like I started overly tolerating and enabling, I started enabling other people's toxic behaviors because I was tolerating, because I love them.
Right.
I was tolerating so much bullshit, right? That I didn't have healthy boundaries. I didn't create healthy boundaries. And so that in itself started creating densities as well, right? So now I'm on the other side of the spectrum where, oh, everything is all like, for
Love
example,
and
one of
light, love and
my
light.
sisters, she put infinite joy on her thing today. When she felt my energy, she put infinite joy. And I said, or sacred rage is okay too. I will not be with shame because I feel this sacred rage. I will not. It's okay as long as I know how to deal with me and I don't project it out to others. I'm not poor. I'm not bleeding on other people.
100%.
I'm actually seeing my blood. I'm doing the patching work and everything that I need to do, essentially doing the healing work that I need to do within myself, but recognizing that it's there and seeing that it's there and not being in a space of illusion where I'm pretending it doesn't exist, or, yes, words of affirmation are powerful. And so sa sekem sawu is a chance of affirming affirmative actions I was taking through chanting, but I was through that affirmative action, I was taking accountability of my anger. I was taking responsibility, and I was navigating through those emotions consciously while making love to it and not being shameful for feeling it. And essentially I was like, I'm going to feel you, but teach me how this rage can turn me into a healer. And by allowing it to show up, by allowing me to allow it to stay present, right? Essentially, but as a teacher, right? Because now I allowed myself to step my ego to the side so I could learn. This energy is a wisdom. It has data. It has information. And I don't know it all, right? This body is such a powerful fucking tool. It's made in the image of the Most High, as am I. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a constant learning experience altogether. So I was like, teach me. And I started seeing parts of myself of things that I didn't know.
And asking that question of how can this teach me is so like vital, because you gotta ask that question when you're feeling these emotions, because sometimes we don't know. We feel something, but we don't know what the emotion is. So it's like so vital. I didn't ask.
It was raining earlier. They said, angelic, make it rain. You Balancian. Listen, let me tell you, and I wanted to go out. Usually I go out and I dance in the rain. I didn't dance in the rain this time just because I was still, that was another, I was working with fire. I love working with water. Oh, I love working with water, especially thunder and lightning and stuff like that in the rain, for sure. But I was guided to work with the fire. I was like, I'm not gonna wash this off just yet. Not just yet. Maybe tomorrow, maybe another day, but right now, essentially afterwards, I went and I started washing it off, right? And that's when I was like, am I washing off these bad vibes, or am I washing off the good girl? Who knows right now? But like, yeah.
And speaking of fire, my incense little thing just kicked one on the floor, and it's like still lit. So.
Yeah. I had to let it burn. And it's yummy. It's
feels
yummy.
amazing, dude. Like that third time I did the exercise of like just fucking letting it out and like screaming like I've never screamed before and in front of others. Because when it comes to others and sharing like either me crying, or I don't have no problem crying in front of others, but feeling my anger and expressing that toward in like in front of others, that is makes me uncomfortable, but it's because of my past. So when I did it for the third time in front of others, I screamed so fucking loud, and I legit like heard like a crack in my throat. I was like, oh, okay, opening, and being expansive, because it's even though it may have felt uncomfortable, it's just each time I did that exercise, it was easier. So
Mm-hmm.
y'all
Mm-hmm.
do your screaming because it feels great. Wherever outlet you will choose to do to release that anger, because yeah, that's just fucking powerful.
So going into the sacred sexuality, right, of it, right? Like, I like, how do you connect the two? How do you connect sacred rage with sacred sexuality?
Hmm. Well, how I connect both is that they're both sacred, of course. And the thing is that with sacred rage and sacred sexuality, how I see them connected is that it's that vulnerability that you can either have with yourself, and the vulnerability connecting with another, and allowing yourself to be seen, and allowing someone to hold you while you're expressing that anger. So that's how I connect it, because it's, we can do things ourselves, but when we connect with community, when we connect with other humans, that's when the magic happens. That's when we see reflections. And yeah, that's how I connect it.
So when you were screaming, right, and that energy was like coming up, and you say you felt the crack, you felt your throat chakra
Yeah,
open up.
my throat, my all my chakras from my throat down were all open and stimulating and activating,
So
because
that would be sacred sexuality.
yeah, because
So
it's
how can you explain to us a little bit more? Like, if someone never had that experience, sharing your experience and how it felt, kind of explain that to us.
okay. So we'll go to that situation that I was just talking about. So the first time it was with my partner, so I felt very comfortable with him, just, releasing all of that. The second and third time was in ceremony. So these are people I've never met. Um, so with that being said, I'm not an open book. It usually takes me time to open up to others, especially very vulnerable, especially sharing that and legit showing my raw anger emotions in front of someone I don't even know. So with that, when that was happening, it did take me a while to get comfortable in my anger, to get comfortable with that emotion. So the more I did it, and I started banging on the floor, and my thought of others, oh, what are they gonna think of me, was my thought. But the more I got into my body, and the more I got into the action of doing so, the releasing of the anger, that thought dissipated, because was turning I was turning inwards. And the fact that we're all here to heal, we're all here to, you know, be and be witnesses of our own healing, it that's when I opened up and I just went at it. And I was crying, I was shaking, because I never allowed myself to open like that. So it's fucking beautiful. And I highly recommend to those who want to do that kind of work, highly, highly recommend. It will change your life. It changed mine. I will never forget that. I will never forget those 2 days. Like putting myself, taking taking myself through the situation that is uncomfortable, but that's where growth happens. So yeah. And now I'm able to express my anger, no problem, and not have that thought of like, oh, they're gonna judge me or they're not gonna like me, like, because it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you're expressing with integrity, you know, whatever it is you need to express with no shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, universal life force energy is love energy. It is sensual. It is sexual, and the way that I kind of connected to is that emotions is energy in motion, and essentially whatever label or expression of that energy or data of that energy is that's the emotion, right? That we're
Right.
feeling, and that's what's moving. And in order for it, like with movement versus the stagnation of it, right? So energy is always moving. It's never really standing still, but it is a such thing as it getting stuck. So it's constantly, it can be moving nowhere fast, right?
Right.
Essentially, you ever been in a situation where you're like, you're doing all these things, but it kind of feels like you're moving nowhere fast. You're like, what the hell? Why can't I seem to move forward, right? It's like you're on a treadmill. You're moving,
Like
but you're
in
in
terms
the
of
same place
emotions, like be like what
in
is the
general,
example in
right?
general?
Right. So that's what, yeah, an emotion that is stagnant is like a person that is physically on a treadmill, right? Like their body is moving, they're getting this energy movement, but their physical, you know, they're kind of in the same place, even though they're
Right.
moving.
Right.
Energy's always moving. And so when we say an energy is stagnant, it's that it's constantly moving in that same place. It's not actually like moving up
Like
or
an
moving
addiction,
down,
like
or
emotional addictions or something like that.
it
Like,
can,
would that be an
it can be,
example?
right, it can be, that can be something like whether it's whatever the label of the emotion is,
Right.
or the addiction or the mental of it, whatever the word is, the data of that energy, right? I don't want to get too caught up because I was like, what, where was I going with
Yeah,
that right now?
because we were talking about, you know, the sacred sensuality and sexuality and how it's connected with sacred range. And
Yes.
then I
Yeah.
expressed my story and my experience with it. And it's just
To open up the
to
chakras.
open
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, to
So
open
that
up and
energy was already there. It was just pent up,
right.
right? It was on a treadmill. It was on a treadmill. And then all of a sudden you're like, bitch, get off the treadmill. It's time for you to really really start walking somewhere. You got miles to make right now, you know? And it made its miles. And when it reached the finish line, like essentially that was the finish line in that moment, it broke through, like, you know, when they're running through the finish line, they have like the tape and it rips the tape
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. That's what that emotion did, that it was celebrating. I made it through, y'all. Like, it had
Oh,
so much practice already in that same space that it was already gonna make it through, but it needed the opportunity, right? Sometimes we
100%.
don't give ourselves the opportunity to experience an emotion, right? We feel the emotion, but we're not experiencing the emotion. You can feel something and not really like have a full experience
Experience.
to a certain degree, you know. Um,
Like surface
there's
level. You're just
levels to
scratching the
this.
surface level of the emotions. And it's like, oh shit, hold on. Like it's deep. It can be deeper than, than what you're
Yeah.
feeling. Then
And
like
like,
your awareness of it as well.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so essentially, like, when it starts moving, it's so much like how it becomes sensual, right? Because what happens is now the energy, it has to, you ever been in this, like, in your comfort zone, and you had to get out your comfort zone, and you feel all these other energies, right? So essentially
Of
what's
course.
happening is this energy is now moved out of its natural or not natural, but its place of where it
Place.
had been at. that it starts feeling everything more intensely.
Right.
And so its vibration is naturally shifting, constantly shifting, because now it's collecting other information and data, right? That's going into it. Essentially, it's more sensual because it's sensory, right? It's sensing everything around it. And it's energetically exchanging with what is around, and that energy exchange is the sexuality part. Is it's the masculine and feminines coming together and moisturizing each other, if you will, through information, and through water flow, right?
Right.
And fire flow through the chi, through your life source energy, right? It's making love in that way as it's moving. And essentially there might, the energy as it's moving up, it might get more information from another organ or another cell, or another atom, that it's essentially helping it, say, go that way, move up that way. And it's a whole conversation. It's a whole, it's a whole thing. It's a whole entire, our body is fucking powerful, y'all. Our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our brains, our hearts, our organs, like it's all interconnected, and it's all so powerful. And that's how I look at it, as like sacred sexuality, because I'm like, yo, like, I like to believe, like, when I say sexuality, I'm like love making, like I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind. Like, my emotions is bumping and it's grinding, and it's essentially it's moving up, and it's making babies where it needs to make babies. And those like thought forms, right? Those babies that are created from that space, those spirits, they become part of my spirit guides, part of my spiritual team, my spiritual council, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And so I'm infinitely spiritually protected at all times, because these essentially are aspects of me, wanting to protect me and communicating with me. And yeah. Like, I love myself so much that there's so many, and I'm not disconnected from myself. So when I start catching the tantrum, I'm like, ooh, like, I recognize, okay, this is me. Like, essentially, even when I want to blame other people for their shit, like, how much of me is responsible for this? Because people are still, they need to be held accountable for their shit, right? Because another part of that toxicity is just like taking all the blame. Like, we're not gonna do that here. I used to do that, and that's
like
what
people
led to, like,
pleasing in a way. That's like, oh, let me keep the peace, not express, and it's like, nah, like, you gotta
no,
fucking
give them the
express.
permission to bust a nut in their own energy too. Give them permission to fucking orgasm with their energy too. Because what the fuck? I could fuck myself all day if I want. You know what I'm saying? But it's nice to have that experience with someone else too. So allow them the accountability of their own anger. Allow them the accountability of them fucking up and having to get it right. You know what I'm saying? Because we're gonna fuck up. I'm not the
Yeah,
only one fucking up.
we're human. We're
That's part of,
there's
and
no
that was part of
no
my
such thing as
rage too. Like, oh, I'm
perfection.
having a human experience. I'm in a body. Like, that was part of my rage too.
Yeah,
It was insane.
we're gonna make fucking mistakes. We're gonna make mistakes, and if you're not making mistakes, it's a little concerning, because there's no such thing as perfectionism. And I told you this. I have a thing with perfectionism, and it's like, I gotta fucking let that shit go, because it doesn't fucking exist. I'm already enough. It's okay. It's okay. But again,
But
also taking
if you're
accountability too.
ready enough, isn't that perfect?
The what?
If you're already
Enough.
enough, isn't that perfect?
Yeah. I just don't like to use perfect, because since I was an old perfectionist, it's just I am
You have a lot of Virgo. Where's your
redirected.
Virgo?
Uh, I'll get back to you on that later, because I don't remember. but
The
it's
Virgos are probably out there like, why are you trying to pick on us, huh? No.
I'm redirecting this perfectionism to it's enough, and to revisit, revise if I, need to, but what I do is enough. It's okay. If I do something wrong, or something that I offend someone, whatever, and like, there's that emotional intelligence that we can communicate all of that. But yeah, it is what it is. Like, not being so hard on myself, or to not be so hard on ourselves when there's a mistake or whatever, because it's not okay, but it's okay. If that makes sense.
No, I love that. I love that. I remember like you and I having those fair share of conversations in regards to perfectionism, and it being a reflection of like me, and why I wouldn't, like, sometimes I'll give the excuse of why I couldn't go live, or why I wouldn't do certain reels, or things having to look a certain type of way. And essentially, like, that was something that I needed medicine to, and essentially I was the medicine too, also, and having
100%.
to come into that realization. Hmm.
Yeah.
Having to come into that realization, and that's where the love is. That's where, coming into the realization that you are the medicine, and the medicine is always coming to you in many different forms as well. The medicine is the act of the sexuality, in a sense, whether
Hmm.
it's however it comes out, you know because who what you know what turns you on, what turns you off, that's very sexual, that's very sensual, right? And sexual and sensual are similar, but they're different, right? But
100%.
essentially needing both of them to kind of get into the information of, this is a turn off, or this turns me on, right? Like, no, if something is making you more moist, making you more wet, then it's turning you on, regardless of how quote unquote good or bad it is, right? And if something is making you more dry, it's turning you off. And like, you ever just meet somebody and like all of a sudden your lip, like everything about you just goes dry, like you just like you feel like you're in a desert, like you didn't even like it doesn't even have to be in a like quote unquote romantic way, like somebody leaving a bitter taste, or upsetting your stomach, or giving you that intuitive hit of like, go that way. That's
Right.
that's your sensuality speaking to you by way of intuition, right? But the sexuality part is the one that's like, you're gonna go dry, you're gonna shut down, you're gonna do this, like, this is not turning me on. That's the sacred sexuality part of the information,
Right.
right?
And the
And
part
that's
of sorry. And
no, go ahead.
part of the sacred sexuality is feeling safe within yourself, with
Mhm.
the partner, or whoever. Because when you
With
feel
yourself.
with yourself, exactly. So feeling safe within yourself is opens you up to have this magical experience of this sacred sexuality and tantra, and experience a magnitude of pure bliss and ecstasy like you have never even thought could happen. So
Mhm. That's why I was so angry, because I was like, wait a minute, hold up. I've been suppressing some shit that, like, I know I could flow with. You know what I'm saying? And like just having to be honest with yourself, just
always,
being honest.
yes.
That's what's gonna moisturize you when you're dry.
Like
That's when you
radical
turn off, when you're
honesty, like legit at radical honesty. And you know, for me, in my own human experience, I I it was hard for me to be radically honest. And I remember when, and I'm going to share this, I remember when me and you met, I was face to face, and I wasn't honest with you. And you fucking told you were honest with me.
Call
You're
you
like,
out on your
you called me out
bullshit.
exactly. I was looking for the word, like it wasn't coming through. You called me out on my bullshit. I sat with it. I'm like, oh shit, she right. I wasn't being honest, and that took me into a deep reflection within myself and why that happened and why I reacted the way I reacted. And then, moving forward, like here we are, and I'm practicing radical honesty every single fucking day, looking myself in the mirror and asking myself, am I fucking honest with myself? Is this really what I want to do? Am I speaking with integrity? Did I follow with what I'm going to say? Am I saying something and not matching the actions behind it? So yeah, it's
And
fucking vital.
you were how I mentioned when they said in the beginning of like asking yourself how much of this is mine, right?
Right.
You were a beautiful or are a beautiful divine reflection of the frequency resonance that I'm on and that I was flowing on, right? Because as much as that was a trigger for you to to reflect upon, it was
Mm-hmm.
also for me.
Right.
And I had to see versions of myself that was still in resonance with that frequency also. Hold on one second. Hey, yo, Luna, get down.
Katie. Speaking of sexuality, these kitties like to do whatever they want.
Do whatever they want to do. And essentially, that's what, like, when that's why they call them the queens, drama queens. That's what if they be like Leos, compare them to cats, and they'd be like, oh, they're so dramatic because they're drama queens and kings. I swear, in their own ways and beings, is
They
hilarious.
can be
They be wanting to do whatever they want to do. Fixing their ways can be stubborn and stuff, but like essentially having to know, like, I can't do it. Yeah, I'm talking about you. But anyway, um, yeah, that was a vibrational resonance, right? Me looking at myself with that, me realizing that there was still, like, as much as I healed in certain areas, there was a little bit more healing to do in certain spaces, but also realizing that, I can still have a relationship with others while I'm healing, right? Sometimes we get so caught up
Mm-hmm.
of like, I can't be with another person because I'm healing. Well, you have friendships and you have colleagues and you have, people in society and neighbors that you still have to deal with. And essentially, like, those are your relationships that you're moving through, right? And so because of however they're related to you, that's the relation,
Right.
right? And the ship is the movements of that relation,
Right.
and
Right,
seeing my
Magic.
relationship with myself and with others, it was really a moving experience, and I thank you for that too, because as I was seeing the bullshit in you, I was like, I did this bullshitter before. Have I been bullshitting like this again? Like, am I being this bullshitter? But it essentially was showing me why it triggered me, because I don't like it done to me, but how I have done it to other people as well. And so seeing those things, right? Like sometimes the truth, like, yo, it's not always pretty. It's not always pretty,
But
but
it's what
you're always
necessary.
beautiful. It's always beautiful. Always
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. That's how you see the beauty in the ugly, even though it's not always pretty and it's not something that we may even want to respect, right?
Yeah.
But essentially, you could at least comprehend it, right?
Right.
Comprehend it. Learn to comprehend that. So I don't want to go too much into that, but because I know you were like on a time frame, and I think we went over your time frame, but it was just so juicy that I kind of had to, like, I was like, yeah, like
You had
you
to.
especially, you know, that's why, you know, when it comes down to the summer solstice and us working together and really like between the meditation of getting nude with ourselves and really getting into our bodies and the sacredness and the tantra and just the
Mm-hmm.
energy flow and, you know, it's really going to touch on so many like principles and so many areas from, you know, sacred rage, sacred sexuality, and just the sacredness of breath, of life, of existence, and sharing that space with you. I'm excited. I
Me
know you're
too.
excited. Like I just I can't thank you enough for being a part of that journey with me and with others, right? Because essentially the medicine that you have to provide, I mean, I've seen you in so many different phases of your
You've seen so many
existence.
versions
Like,
of me.
oh my gosh,
So
it's
many.
like you your Scorpio energy is like that transformative deepness has like yo. I mean, I look at it and I love it, you know, because I have like I have a first house Scorpio stellium in me as well
Hmm.
too. So I get real interpersonal with that shit. Like essentially, like for those of you that study astrology, like having that type of placement, people have been known to like even have life and death experiences when they were a baby, and I've passed away and come back quite a few times. And so there, if that's not the case, a lot of the times it's like deeply seated traumas and whatnot. So when I see that, I'm like, oh man, like I get it. Yo, this is why, you know, I learned I was cynical as fuck and this, that, and the third, but then I see the cynical in you and I'm like, that's why you felt the need to protect yourself and create these lies and then
For
essentially
survival.
like you was like, all right, I'm gonna come out with the truth, but you had your stinger behind you,
I was like,
like
here's the
ready
fucking
just in
truth, okay?
case. Yeah.
I don't know what to do, but here it is, okay? Like, what the fuck?
It's like, oh, put the stinger down. It's okay, but tell me what's up, like you know, and just seeing the different ways that you morph even from that scorpion to like you know the eagle, like you actually like was like, wait a minute, let me step out of myself, let me have a higher vision, let me look at the whole picture, right? And then you know just burning whatever impurities you had to burn in that with your sacred rage and turning into that phoenix, and then you
Mhm.
completely outside of that, like you was like, you know, essentially embodying your wholeness, right? Outside of astrology, outside of numerology, outside of labels, just
Like
really in your
my being.
primordial self. When we were eye gazing, oh my gosh,
Oh
like
my
we couldn't help but just start
God.
crying, and it was just
I
so
couldn't
much
even
love.
look at you because like the instant that I saw into your eyes and wanted to express from my heart, it was just pure emotions, like crying from just pure gratitude and unconditional love that I have for you because of
Yeah,
what
it
we've
was, it
been
was a
through.
lot. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so
Oh,
I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited to connect with you again and connect with whoever's supposed to be there.
mm-hmm.
Have all this juiciness just flowing on the earth and in the cosmos, right?
Gonna
In
be
all dimensions. Yeah, it's gonna be juicy.
all
It's
the
gonna be
12,
powerful.
9, however, how many dimensions we
Infinite,
have. I lost count. Infinite.
infinite dimensions, because I can't even, I know when it comes to myself sometimes I can't even, people be 5D and I'm like sometimes 5D is in my big toe, like
It'd be like that sometimes.
5D be in my big toe. I'm trying to get my foot awake and shit like that, and I'm like, where am I standing? I don't even know how to speak English. It's just a thought process that I'm having, because I'm like, I don't know what's here. Right, it's sound frequencies. It's I be feeling all you know. If I had to give it a label, it's like autistic. I come back to this world. They're like, wow, you really do get really quiet, but
Yeah, I'm
so
just
much
here,
was
man.
going on.
You're here like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm just thinking about all of this all over the place. I'll be
You
back in a
know,
moment.
uh-huh, uh-huh. But Yeah, I thank everyone for tuning in, everyone who's here. If you have any questions, put them in real quick. Please be sure to follow the beautiful Cosmic Shakti. This is my beautiful divine sister. I'm so excited for everything that she's putting out in the world. She has her book club that I'm
My
excited
cheeks
for.
hurt
She
from
has her
smiling.
sister
Thank you.
circle that I love. I mean, the way that you hosted that sister circle and even just being in ceremony with you and your partner and with Saint Pedro, I mean, that was by far a beautiful experience. And, I can't wait for the baby Saint Pedro to grow so I could share that with y'all and everything. And just sharing the experience of being in ceremony with y'all. And even prior to that, we knew each other prior to that ceremony. Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. I'm excited. I thank you
Yeah,
all.
beautiful.
I don't think there is any questions. I think they got the point of what we were trying to say of how to connect um, just the sacredness into all things
Mm-hmm.
out of the chrysalis. Yeah. Oh my God. I posted like I had a caterpillar that was eating
Mm-hmm.
at my
Yeah.
collard greens, and now it started to cocoon, and so it's crystallizing right now. You know what I'm saying? And that's what made me do the crystal reading earlier between the sacred rage, sacred sexuality, and just watching the transformation of this freaking caterpillar that I have a feeling it's going to turn into a moth before it turns into a butterfly, but we'll see what it turns into. We'll see.
Surprise.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Is when we're metamorphosing, right? Like essentially what comes out, like some of us, we could all look like caterpillars, and when we come out the cocoon, we might fly into different directions because some of us might turn into moths, and some of us, which are nocturnal, right? And some of us might turn into butterflies, and essentially flying in different directions, and knowing that that's okay too if that happens when you're in the releasing phase of like all of this experience, right? But then essentially like flying to your tribe of other butterflies or your tribe of other moths and stuff too, right? And
100%.
but also seeing how we both have wings, right? We both have
Full
wings.
circle.
Our wings may look different, right? Our wings may look different, but we are one. So I thank you. I love you. I honor you. May you open your wings and fly free, baby, fly. And I love you through it.
And scream it out too. I'm just kidding.
And scream it out.
I love
Peace.
you. Love you. Thanks, guys.